All right, thanks, Zoom. Well, welcome to the ceramic community call. We have no demos this week, but some exciting updates to share and some questions to ask. We have some decisions to make and wanted to get some feedback. I guess we can just start by going around and asking if there's anything anyone wants to talk about in particular. You can either just call it out or drop it in the chat, and then we'll sort of just go through. So I guess we can start with the 3Box Labs team. I know there were a couple things that we had put on the agenda before the call. So we wanted to talk about, in no particular order, block reorg issues that are happening on Ethereum testnet from EIP 1559 and how they're affecting the ceramic clay testnet since we use it for anchoring. An update on did NFT, some performance improvement updates that we've been making and will merge in soon. Perceived issues with 3ID Connect, partly related to the block reorgs on Clay, and some other things that we want to improve there. Also some expectations about running nodes and moving into ELP phase 2, and how that'll be coming up shortly. Also an announcement on HackFS, some of the hackathon from Protocol Labs that we're sponsoring and the bounties we have there. We wanted to introduce some new team members, so Lauren and Hardik, and also talk about supporting 712 signatures inside of Ceramic. Anything else that anyone wants to talk about? Mike, Brent, Jose?
I just typed it up, but just to have it on record, maybe probably would like to bother Joel about the KDA provider SEC 256K one, because I think there's a few bugs over there and we might be using it in the future, but we can discuss that a little bit at the very end, tail end of the meeting.
Okay, sounds good.
Thanks.
Anything else? Yeah, Filter Fridays. All right, let's start with intros. So 2 new members of the 3Box Labs team, Lauren and Hardik. Feel free to say hi.
Yeah, sure, I can go ahead first. Nice to meet you guys. I just joined 3Box on Monday, so 5 days in. Joined to work closely with Danny and Michael around growth and business development, so excited to be at the first ceramic community call. My background, I've been in space for a little bit, so came from R3, used to be at Deloitte in the blockchain lab, so more on kind of the enterprise blockchain side, and then spent some time at Consensus. So that's how I first, got connected with Danny and Michael and the rest of the team, and how we got reconnected to come here today. And yeah, I guess maybe just like quick plug, I'd love to chat with any of you guys and to learn a little bit more about your projects, what you're working on, any feedback that you want to give to us and the team. I know you're here and we'll probably do some of that today, but kind of just I guess a quick ask to reach out and let's make time to chat. I'll pass it to Hardik.
Cool. Hello, everyone. I'm Hardik. Joined 3Box about a week ago to assist with the protocol team alongside Joel, Sergey, and Spencer. So I guess for background, I've been in the DID space for a couple of years now, working with Hyperledger Indy, Hyperledger Aries, DIF related stuff, zero knowledge proof, stuff like that. And currently at 3Box working on adding support for JSON LD and EIP 712 signatures to Ceramic. So yeah, if you have any questions about any of that, feel free to message me. Nice to meet you all.
Sweet. Well, we're glad to have you. Why don't we start on some of the agenda topics? Sergey, do you want to kick us off about did NFT?
Yeah, for sure. So, well, did NFT was announced like long ago. Basically, it allows you to represent your NFT as, well, DID, so that well, an owner of an NFT could create or change ceramic streams. Well, one use case you can think about is adding metadata to NFT, like CO2 profile or some creative story around that particular NFT, things like that. Well, the specification was issued like quite a long time ago, but like the implementation started like really this week. So for now, the signature part, well, we know how to handle the signature part. Well, encryption, decryption is coming next, and the plan here is well, to release like alpha of that thing sometime next week or maybe the week after, so that you can really play with it with a really proper fully production ready implementation coming in the next week. But like this is the thing now. We now know all the considerations that should be handled on like all of the fronts with regards to ceramic node, with regards to DID provider, and how, well, all the DID related machinery. And this is really exciting. Like after all the waiting, it finally is getting, well, in shape.
Do you have any summary of like actually how the provider will work? Like, so let's say I'm a user and I log into an app with 3ID Connect or something, and I have a profile so I can edit my own data. How would I then start using the like DID NFT provider to actually do things on behalf of the NFT?
So the assumption is that the application, the app, has the NFT token reference with a contract address, token ID, and like a reference to the particular chain. And the app developer would pass that along with the ID provider that's well injected by 3ID Connect into, well, combined provider. Well, we have no name yet, because potentially it could be used for NFT DID and for Safe DID. But with that, you have full capability to sign as NFT owner, as basically as that NFT thing, and add the strips. So like two things are required: 3ID Connect provided DID provider and a reference to that particular NFT token.
Yep. And as you said, that's super similar to how Safe DID might work with just the contract address of the safe.
Absolutely.
Cool. Exciting. I know that you've been working with Mike on some of that. Mike, any questions, or you've kind of like up to date on what's been happening?
Yeah, I mean, I'm mostly up to date. I don't have any questions right now, and if there's anything I can do to help, Sergey, if you get distracted with another project or something, just let me know. I'd be happy to jump in and help out. I'm super stoked for that to get up. So.
Yep. Thanks. Any more questions on that? If not, we can jump to maybe some of the performance improvement updates that we've been kind of like getting ready to go into the next release over the last couple of weeks. I guess that's probably like Sergey, or not Sergey, Spencer, Mahendra.
Yeah, Mohsen doesn't seem to be on the call. Yeah, Mohsen, another teammate on the protocol team, has been working on a series of performance improvements to the protocol. These are, you know, the relatively low-hanging fruit. We have not been particularly rigorous in terms of like, you know, doing a lot of performance testing and drilling down into what our like main bottlenecks are. These are the things that were just like so kind of overwhelmingly obvious, because we had done very little real performance work on the code base thus far. So mainly a lot of the work that's happening right now is around minimizing how often we call out to IPFS. We basically realized that in the process of like loading a stream, we wind up loading the same ceramic commits from IPFS multiple times. Like we'd query IPFS for this given CID, and like one CID might get 7 queries over the course of loading a stream. So this is just a lot of cleanups to the internal sort of code paths to be a little bit more intelligent in the control flow and put in some caching layers to basically so that when we're loading a single stream, every commit in that stream gets loaded from IPFS ideally once. And once we've loaded it from IPFS, then we have the data and we can use it throughout the entire loading pipeline. So some of those improvements have already landed in the ceramic develop branch and will get released soon, hopefully by the end of next week, if not early the following. And then there's still more work in the same vein. Like we've brought the number of duplicate queries to IPFS down from like 7 to 3. I think is where we got it in the last series of commits, but we hope to get it down to 1. Each commit should be loaded exactly once as part of the application process. So continuing to make further improvements in that vein, and that should help reduce the load on the backing IPFS node, as well as just generally make the system more performant, because the calls to IPFS are some of the most expensive parts of what we do.
And when do we think those will actually be available on the main branch?
So yeah, so the first batch, the ones that have already been done and merged, will get released in our next release, which hopefully will be either late next week or early the week after. But then there'll be further improvements coming in the coming weeks as well as we continue work in this area.
All right, sounds good. I guess Danny and or Lauren, do either of you want to share what's going on with HackFS?
Sure, I'm happy to share. I don't know if Danny is.
Go for it.
So yeah, we are one of the sponsors for HackFS this year, which actually just kicked off today. I think at 10 o'clock this morning. It's going from now until August 20th. I can post the website here in the chat. So if any of you guys are interested in potentially taking a look, we have $8,000 worth of bounties up for our prizes for this hackathon, and a whole bunch of different ideas for potential projects. So not sure if anyone who's on the line, if any of your projects would already be relevant to kind of think about submitting something similar for as part of the hackathon, but I will also drop in the blog post, which has more details here as well. Danny, anything else you want to add?
Nope, that pretty much covered it. We'll be available basically all of the time, either in our Discord or in the HackFS Discord, to work through things. Also, in the last community call, I think we said that our plan was to have a ceramic hosted hackathon around now, but we decided to participate with our partners at Protocol Labs in this one first, and then we'll have a ceramic specific hackathon probably next month instead, or September, given that we're at the end of this month. So look out for more news on that soon.
Cool. Hardik, with the whatever that is on your face, do you want to talk about EIP 712 signatures?
Sure. So basically, EIP 712 is this new way to do signed data using Ethereum wallets. So instead of signing a bunch of random characters, you're going to be signing something you can actually read and understand what's going on. So the idea is, instead of using something like 3ID Connect as an alternative to 3ID Connect, you can sign commits for Ceramic directly from your Ethereum wallet like MetaMask, and have it be all human readable, so you'll know what's going on. Yeah, that's sort of the end goal of it. Under the hood, there's a lot of work that needs to be done to support that. Primarily, like Ceramic currently uses JWS-based signatures for, I think, everything. So switching that from JWS to like JSON LD-based signatures, JSON LD-based documents being signed with EIP 712 signatures. Yeah, and adding it all across Ceramic. I guess one last thing, like a great improvement for that is separating the concern of the storage of the private key versus owning like sovereign data. So you can use whatever Ethereum wallet that supports 712 right now, since it's not supported everywhere. Like use that instead of some other provider.
Yeah, so essentially, right now the signed commits in Ceramic are signed using JWS, which is like a pretty compact, neat signature format. But the 712 signature is something that, like, when you sign it with an Ethereum wallet, you will kind of more clearly see what's going on. And so I think the long-term goal for Ceramic is to support both kind of these JWS compact signatures, but also generally like JSON LD proofs, because there's a lot of work going on in the DAD community in general with JSON LD, and we want to be able to like leverage that and provide tools for the like decentralized identity communities in general. Yeah, so I think the Ethereum 712 signatures is kind of the first step towards that.
And does it still work the same? Like you're just signing the message with your key or with your DID? Like, does it actually change anything under the hood?
Well, so you'd sign it with your Ethereum address, and so that will sign it. Like right now, the easiest way we have to like test this out is to use the EtherDID, which was just merged. But it will also be support. There's this work going on in between us and the Spruce team to create, and probably some other people, to create a DAD method called DAD PKH, which is kind of based on a DID method based on like addresses of like any blockchain.
So this wouldn't be necessarily compatible with like 3ID DID. It's like only specific DID methods that use the private key that are like derived from the private key tied to the wallet.
In theory, 3ID could use it, but 3ID is more effective to just use the JWS because it's much like smaller and neater signature format.
So this just extends the use case for different DID methods, more or less.
Yeah, and potentially like this signature type could actually be used in the Cap10 link to have a better, more formal way of encoding the signatures there.
Sounds good. All right. Do we want to talk about the block reorg issue that's been happening on Ethereum testnets and how that might be surfaced to Ceramic testnet developers?
Sure. Yeah. Basically, for the last few weeks, which seemed to correlate with when EIP 159 got merged to Ropsten, or deployed to Ropsten, I should say. We've noticed some increased instability in the Ropsten, the Ethereum Ropsten testnet, sort of in general. With periods where like there's long periods of time where no transactions get mined or empty blocks get produced, a few other things. But one issue that's been coming up a lot in the last couple weeks has been block reorgs, where basically what happens is the way the anchor process works in Ceramic, when a commit gets anchored, the anchor service submits the transaction to the blockchain, to in this case, Ropsten, waits for it to be mined, waits for, I think, 3 or 4 block confirmations on top of that block in which the transaction was mined, Once that happens, it assumes the transaction was successful, and then it generates the anchor commit that goes into the ceramic stream. And the ceramic stream anchor commit includes the block number in which that transaction was mined. But what we've been seeing is that at some point later on, when you try to load the stream and you try to validate the anchor commit, you go and you have the anchor commit which says the block number in which the transaction was mined. But then when you go and query the blockchain for that transaction, you see it's in a different block number than what it was originally mined in. And so this suggests that there was a block reorg on the chain where basically right after, when it was mined to some, presumably some subset of the overall network. But then eventually the chain reorganizes, and the majority chain, the transaction gets put into a different block number.
Why do we store the block number in the anchor commit?
Now that is an interesting question. And I think that this is the premise of an initiative we have in the backlog to look into this, that it might be possible that we just don't need to make this validation check, that we can just get the block number from the chain always. We use it right now. We depend on it right now in our conflict resolution. We pick, when there are completing branches of history, we pick the branch of history that has the earlier block number. So whichever one was anchored first. And we get that from the anchor commit. So we would need to go to chain to get the block number in that case instead, which might have some performance implications, but it's definitely something we can look into.
Interesting. Like, do we actually don't we have to validate that the anchor commit is correct before we can do conflict resolution anyway? Or is this for like old anchor commits that we already verified?
Yeah, so what you're saying is when we apply the anchor commit, we have to go on chain to validate it anyway. So as long as we just kept track of that in memory, what the block number we learned from the chain was, then when it comes to do conflict resolution, we'd have it.
Right.
Yeah, I do think that is probably the direction we want to go, and that is what the initiative in our backlog for more graceful block reorgs would do. So yes, I do think that is probably the right long-term solution to how we handle this, and needs a little bit more investigation. In the meantime, though, we're working on something that doesn't quite get rid of the problem, but makes the problem less painful to developers. So one of the things that we sort of learned from this is that the ceramic node will validate the anchor commit, and if the block number in the anchor commit doesn't match the one on chain, we throw an exception saying that like this commit is invalid. And one of the things that we've noticed, we've been getting a lot of reports from users that they can't load their streams because they're getting this block number mismatch error thrown. And what that sort of exposed is kind of a more fundamental issue in the protocol, which is that an invalid commit in the log should not prevent you from loading the stream at all, right? Because like a malicious user could craft an invalid commit and send it to the pub sub channel and make the node try to load this invalid commit. The node will detect that the commit is invalid and throw it out. But right now, that would actually cause the stream to fail to be loaded, which is a mistake. So the work I have up in code review right now makes it so that if a commit is invalid, then we just discard that commit. We pretend as if that commit doesn't exist because it's invalid. But it does not invalidate other commits that were earlier in the stream log. So you could still load the stream up until the point where the commit becomes invalid, but all of the valid commits that were loaded previously, those are still valid, and we can still return the stream state from all of the valid commits that we were able to process.
And that's just the anchor commit, right? So in this case, it would just be the anchor commit that's invalid, not the signed commit that precedes it.
That's correct for this case, right? So like, yeah, if you had hit this block number mismatch issue, we would wind up basically throwing out the anchor commit, making it as though the stream was not anchored. But the previous commit, which would be the commit that has the actual data that was changed, that's still valid. And you could still request a new anchor for that data that could then be anchored and make the stream be anchored validly. But yeah, so everything previous will exist. Although this logic that I'm changing applies to all types of commits, not just anchor commits, that like anytime there's an invalid commit of any form, we'll remove that commit from the log, but still return the rest of the log, and the rest of the stream state can still be loaded correctly. So this was sort of a bug we would want to fix anyway, because this is just a sort of a fundamental property of the system. So we're going to fix that, and that will not stop the block reorg issues from happening, but it will make them a little bit less painful when they do, because it won't mean that you just can't load your stream. It would mean that your anchor failed. That even though the anchor kind of was successful, we'll consider it as failed because it doesn't match the metadata we expect. So that's still not perfect. We'd like the anchor to still be successful, but at least your stream will be valid and your data will be valid. And then the next phase will be to do what Joel was talking about, which is to make it so that we don't actually care if there's a block reorg. We get the block number from chain, and we won't complain if it changes. That would be sort of the phase 2 to make these errors just stop happening in the first place.
Thanks. I now know a lot more about how that actually works. And so where is this showing up most often for people? Like I've seen reports of 3ID Connect, at least those using the Clay testnet where these reorgs happen, complain that they're not able to authenticate because the block number is wrong. And what would cause that? Is that like they added an Ethereum key to their keychain, and that keychain can't be, that stream for the keychain can't be validated?
It's literally, I mean, so any stream that's created or updated, that then goes to be anchored, if the anchor winds up hitting this reorg issue on Ropsten, then that entire stream becomes unloadable currently. So it's really anytime you try to load a stream, any stream, which could be the 3ID stream itself, it could be the keychain stream, any of the streams that are involved, if they get into this state, the whole stream becomes unloadable. That like any attempt to load it will just throw this exception, which is why it's it's a bad problem.
Yeah.
You get state and that stream becomes. But the good news is, once my fix goes in and gets deployed, streams that are currently being affected by this will become available again. Like it won't just, it'll apply to the streams that are currently affected, will start working again, like not even just for new streams. So that'll be good. It'll just make it so that, that anchor commit will be thrown out, but all the streams that are currently affected will become usable again once my patch is merged and deployed.
Nice. Zach, anything else to add on 3ID Connect that may or may not be directly related to the block reorg? Are there any other performance things that are top of mind for you?
Yep. Yeah, and I mean, just to go on Spencer stuff, yeah, of course, 3D Connect relies on a whole bunch of streams, and any one of those, it could block loading and then continues to as you continue to use it until you get that fix in. There's a few things in 3D Connect as well that we can make it more robust to, not necessarily require each piece. I think right now it kind of just assumes more of a happy path. So there's definitely some things there as well as support better reliability. Besides that, we've seen a few other issues, just as like a general update. For one, some people reported, you notice now that we're doing 3box profile migrations inside 3ID Connect. So that actually makes requests to our DID server right now, or in our profile server for 3box. Some people saw those requests, and those requests will sometimes return 404s if your profile is not found. So some people are seeing those in the console and reporting those. Those are fine. We're going to handle those a little bit better, and we don't need to make as many requests there. So we're going to try to minimize those. And we won't need those after the migration either, so we won't see those either. Other than that, we're just gathering as many issues as we can, and going to prioritize some of them. And further out over the next few sprints, we do have a lot more stuff on the design and UI flow and everything that I think we've shared in past calls as well.
Cool. Just to clarify on that 404 issue, basically the thing is if you're using 380 Connect to authenticate to a DID with an Ethereum address, and there is not a 3-box profile for that Ethereum address, then you'll see a 404, but it's harmless. It just means that there's no 3-box profile for that Ethereum address. Whereas if you have a 3-box profile, then you won't see the 404. But like there's lots of users who have, any user who's using 3ID Connect but did not use 3-box in the past will now see this 404, but it's harmless.
Yep.
That's the right summary.
Yeah. There's technically it's like the right response, but like it's confusing. We've gone into this for a long time with 3-box, and hopefully sooner rather than later, we'll not have to deal with 3-box anymore at all. But it's like what we have to live with, and I'm sure we can handle it better. All right, Val, do you want to share what the latest is on allowing people to start running their own nodes on mainnet?
Yep, sure. So yeah, I mean, basically a major focus for our team in general, but in particular on the infra/platform team, has been enabling other people to run nodes. So right now on ELP, for example, we're running nodes for the early launch partners. And then we obviously also run nodes for Clay. And we also have a dev environment where we run public nodes. But you know, as we continue to develop, like obviously we want other people to run ceramic nodes and be a part of the network. So we've been doing work to do that now. And basically our kind of strategy for this for now is have some of our partners set up their ceramic nodes and then connect to our anchor service. So we will give them access to use our mainnet anchor service in the interim until we get to a point where others can run their own anchor services as well. So basically what that looks like is just opening up CAS to certain partners who have kind of signed up with us early. And then in addition to that, providing instructions for how to actually go about running ceramic nodes. So I've been working on like a write-up of that and pretty close to being done with those instructions. The major pieces there are making sure that you are persisting data. That's kind of the most critical thing for running a node, especially in production. So having a way to persist the IPFS data that the ceramic node relies on, and also the ceramic state store. So yeah, that's kind of pretty much the summary, and we're getting close to allowing that. So something to look out for soon if you're interested in running your own node. I guess one other small piece, we've been working kind of internally on the infra side to clean up our like deploy process and just automation in general. And so as a part of that, we've set up a webhook that allows you to receive updates if like JS Ceramic, for example, has a release. So that's something that we've been working on that is going to be, it's really helpful for us internally to do automated deploys, but also can be helpful for the community. So as you do start thinking about running your own node or even just developing locally, you'd be able to get updates sent to a Discord channel or anywhere else that you would want whenever there's a new release. So if people are interested in that, definitely let me or someone else on the team know, and we can get you set up on that once it's complete.
Nice. And I guess a new page coming to the documentation soon about how to run your own node.
Yeah, we should think about where that should live. I guess somewhere in the docs would be good. So yeah.
Great. I think that's
jump
Joel.
to questions.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, we can jump to questions, and I know Jose wanted to talk about was it SecP?
K1.
Yeah.
So yeah. Do you want to ask the question or?
Yes, just I think I put you already on Discord, but pretty much I try to use KID provider with Sect K1, but it just failed, and I don't know whether there's, because it also doesn't have a test suite, so I don't know whether you guys are working on maybe pimping it up, or whether that is something that we are happy to also help and support, and maybe send as part of the lovely ETH hackathon. but I don't know if that even fits in the category. So
So-
I can make it my weekend project.
Yeah, we're not actually actively working on fixing that. I think I built that as a prototype, and then since SecP K1 doesn't have like a neat way to do encryption, I just ended up
Yeah.
implementing the same thing for ED 25519. But yeah, the only thing that's kind of missing, like it should work, but it's not because it doesn't yet conform to the EIP 2844 JSON
Yep.
RPC calls. I think if it's updated to conform to those message types that it accepts from the send, then it should just start working. And so I think it's just like some small nuances in like how it handles and responds to messages.
No, I mean, I'm happy to take over that. Like, I just wanted to know, because if that is something you guys are not super like, we need it at Copper currently, because our keys are based on SEC 256K1. So I don't need to say the whole thing, but they're based on that one. And we needed at the beginning, I used Edward Twisted Curves, the other key provider. And I thought that will be enough, because it would make sense to have a separate key for signing and for logging. But unfortunately, that means that we cannot guarantee that the logs come from the actual node that we're logging into. So we are falling back to that one. So that is fine. I just wanted to know if you are not overlapping efforts, then that seems like a fun weekend project. And also, piling on that same question, are you by any chance, my guess is probably going to be no, but I asked you about RSA, which also is a completely different thing in terms of how it handles signing. But that is something that could be more related to a personal project, because, for instance, some cryptographic keys handled by some governments, they are RSA keys. So I was thinking maybe for the hackathon will be fun to create an RSA.
What was the thing? Oh, RSA.
RSA? Yeah, RSA.
Yeah, good question. I don't know. Is RSA supported by the DID key specification?
I mean, it could, but here's the thing. I don't know, first of all, if it's worth it to do it to begin with. The only reason why I thought it might make sense is because right now in Solidity, it's super expensive. There's like one random contract that allows you to verify signatures on using RSA. But it will be actually very neat to have RSA based keys on using ceramic, right? Because that opens the door for a lot of outdated systems that refuse to use elliptic curves, but they can leverage something like ceramic, which is probably something what I will use for the hackathon. That being said, because of the DAD specification, and as you say, I'm not 100% sure whether this is. Oh, I'm checking it over.
So yeah, I'm not sure. I don't think that
I don't think so.
The key method supports RSA keys.
No, you're right.
They might accept like a PR to start supporting that. I don't know. I don't know how
it'll get merged in 2023. No, okay, that's actually good, because I just saw the specification. That's fine for decentralized identifiers. That's fine. All right, I'll stick with 256K1 and for
yeah, and I know we have a PR also for SecP R1, which actually Brent created.
Yeah.
So that I think we want to try to prioritize that again soon. Because there's also another team that are interested in using that key. So that key is generally more accepted in, I guess, like US governmental use cases, because it's like, oh, actually, no, K1 also got approved by NIST now. So
isn't it in patented?
Recently.
I think that's, wasn't that patented? Was the whole thing, the whole discussion about Edward curves? We can get out on on this card.
SecP 256 R1 has been approved by NIST for quite some time, but actually recently, like the last month or two, they accepted K1 as well. So that was
Didn't know that.
from partly, I think, from a colleague that just like sent them like, hey, you should support this. But yeah, so we want to merge the R1 as well. The main thing there is we need to upgrade which JavaScript version we're relying on, because it's using like the big int functionality. So we might need to do like a major version bump for Ceramic. But there's actually like I think I was talking with someone from Kong Cash. They make like these microchips, and these chips only support R1s, and they wanted them to they want to write to Ceramic with those chips. So it seems like useful. The Kong Cash is like they have like physical nodes that have like a chip and on-chain key on them.
Yeah, I mean, might not necessarily be that related, but if that's something that you guys are actually working on, and I don't know how active you are in terms of talking with some other teams. Like I know, for instance, like I think Polkadot uses Schnorr. That might be something that you know.
Yeah, Schnorr should be very simple to add to the key did method. That would be awesome if
I'm just saying we can poke them and be like, hey, I know they're sponsoring some grants, so maybe that can be someone's weekend project.
Yeah, that would be awesome if that can happen. Because the did key method like should, I guess, like fairly trivially support Schnorr signature.
They're here in Switzerland, so maybe I'll poke someone and maybe we can coordinate a call later on.
Nice, and yeah,
sure.
let me know if you want to update the key did method, because I can poke the right people there.
Sweet, perfect. That will be great. Awesome, thank you.
Cool. I think there was some other question.
Yeah, Brent has some questions. Is P256 IoT with Ceramic something that Ceramic really needs anytime soon? Question. I think to finish that, I need to do a JSON RPC over LoRa. After that, I should figure out how to keep it going.
You do want to add some context, Brent? If you're there.
Well, I think you sort of answered it earlier. It looks like, yeah, after you get the latest JavaScript, you can get the P256 stuff. Okay, so I hadn't finished it, but I think there's P384 and P512. I haven't quite gotten P512 working, but as I was talking to the, I think it's the Decentralized Identity Foundation, one of their GitHub channels, and they wanted to extend for all those 3 different NIST curves, the P-base curves. And the long and short of it is the code that I gave you, I don't know, it might be starting to get a little bit outdated, because I refactored my code so it could support all 3, and you kind of plug them in. But the second part was, well, I guess we'll talk about it on Discord, but I think that finish that. I don't know. I guess I sort of asked because I don't know. I mean, I participated in the hack money thing, so it's not something I like was doing. Maybe I start sort of left that project for a little bit because I wasn't certain where it was going, but I'd like to get back with it. And yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I'm kind of like excited again about like merging support for R1 and like these other P curves. If you have like an upgraded thing with that, but like because yeah, like this yeah, I think like supporting these types of ships is super cool, and I think it's a little bit hassle to have to bump the JavaScript version, but I think long term it's going to be worth it. So I think we're just going to have to do it somewhat soon. So yeah, if you want to like update the PR, that's awesome. Then I guess we can try to get it merged sooner.
Sure.
Thanks. Cool.
So I think that's it for everything we had on the agenda and the questions in the chat. Is there anything else we want to talk about? Open floor. Nope. All right, well then we can give back 12 minutes. Nice. Everyone can use it these days. All right. Well, thanks for hopping in. I guess we'll see everyone on Discord, and I guess Mike, keep an eye out for Sergey's messages on Did NFT, and Jose, looking forward to getting your keys to work.
I will. Thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend.
All right. See y'all.
See ya.
Thanks all.